And now all of a sudden you get lumped in with something you completely disagree with.
Yeah. It's before I left Congress, I introduced a bill called the Protect Women's Sports Act.
What is a woman?
Exactly. I am a woman.
Well,
just to make that clear.
Congratulations. I could be one too. Don't get cocky.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to put myself out there and disagree wholeheartedly with that, Joe Rogan.
You are a bigot.
I know.
I can't believe it. Outrageous.
I've been called worse things.
Yeah.
We introduced this legislation. I introduced it with a Republican friend of mine named Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma. And he's got 6 kids. 3 of them are little girls. All of his kids wrestle. And the bill was very, very simple in upholding the original intent of Title IX. Can you
explain Title IX to people?
Title IX was passed, I think in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a huge landmark piece of legislation because it delineated, it provided a level playing field on the basis of sex, meaning males have opportunities, females deserve those same opportunities, whether it be in sports or in college, and in all in a public funding realm, essentially, where the federal government can impact it. It said there has to be a level playing field and equal opportunity. So people like my mom, who grew up, she's very athletic. The only thing that was available to her in high school was cheerleading, and she did it. She was great, but she would have liked the opportunity to be able to compete in other sports. Carla Esparza, I think, is a more modern day example. There were no girls wrestling teams in her high school. She got a scholarship to wrestle in college on a girls' team, and obviously she has gone on to do amazing things. So Title IX was created recognizing that difference on the basis of sex. Democrats have championed Title IX and talked about this great accomplishment in passing this legislation for decades. And that's where it makes no sense. So our legislation basically just said, hey, we want to uphold the original intent of Title IX in recognizing the biological differences between males and females, period. They should not be competing against each other. The legislation didn't move forward for obvious reasons. We were excoriated for having the audacity to uphold the original intent of Title IX. And now what we're seeing with the Biden administration is administratively, not even through passing legislation, they're trying to backdoor this move to change the rules around Title IX to include gender identity rather than having it be on the basis of biological sex, to include gender identity, and threatening schools that they will withhold federal funding unless they adopt this rule change within the Biden administration. Again, not running through Congress, not allowing the people's voices to be heard, but trying to backdoor this through and making threats to publicly funded educational institutions as a means of trying to implement this.
Now, why do you think they're doing that? And is that publicly supported? Because the only thing that makes sense is politically they would do that because that would help them in terms of an election. Why else would they do that?
There are polls that have been done that show not only a majority of Americans disagree with this, but also a majority of Democrats disagree with this. And so why they're doing it, they're catering to those ideological zealots within the Democratic Party and trying to placate them in their radical policies and their extremes, rather than actually standing up and saying, you know what, no, this is science, this is biology, and this is what's right. And oh, by the way, it would also be politically beneficial given where the vast majority of Democrats and Americans are on this.
But it's just wild that no one's pushing back.
Yep.
It's really wild, especially no one in the Democratic Party. They seem like they're captive by the furthest left.
Yeah, it's true.
And that doesn't make any sense to me.
That's
because
true.
If the majority of Democrats, and I agree with that, the majority of people that I know that are on the left don't think it's fair, why are they doing it then? Because that seems like that would be an unpopular position. Not just an unpopular position, but horribly unpopular for people that have daughters that compete in sports.
Exactly.
Like if you're a daughter and you're competing in that Connecticut track and field team where those two biological males are breaking world records, like that's crazy.
It is.
Like at what point in time do you not understand you're denying a child of a fair future?
Yeah.
You're denying them a potential scholarship where they could go to a university and pursue an education.
Yeah.
Like you're fucking them up because of this thing that doesn't even affect you. It's not,
Exactly.
you're just doing it for this cult-like ideological perspective.
Exactly. And that's the danger of it, is the people in charge of the Democratic Party, whether they actually hold positions or they just are influential in the Democratic Party, have created this cult-like atmosphere and fomented this fear so much so that people who are really in a position to impact this, to stand up against it and say, hold on, guys, this is literally insane and needs to stop. They're too afraid to do so because of what the ramifications will be. The Democratic Party of the past, the Democratic Party that I joined, doesn't exist anymore. The party that was, the party of JFK, of Dr. Martin Luther King, the party of inclusivity, the Big Tent party that welcomed and encouraged this marketplace of ideas and conversations and people who held different views, the party of, that championed women and equality and the rights of people in our society. That party it doesn't exist anymore. And instead we have a party that's being led by people who have gone insane with this ideological fanaticism. And there are a lot of different issues, a lot of different examples.